Nintendo is out of control right now. Nintendo is their own worst enemy. They caused this by their own selves. That is right. Nintendo is its own worst enemy right now. Welcome back to another video here on the channel. And we finally got the Nintendo Switch unveiling. And we're going to talk a little bit about all of the craziest things with Nintendo, with the announcement of like game prices, the Switch console itself, being able, or well, I should say, getting charged to get a game that should be in the system itself and then getting charged for basically upgrades to Switch 1 games. So, the Nintendo Switch 2, all right, it's coming out for $450. Now, some people don't like this price point, but I don't honestly think it's a super bad price point because, I mean, we initially knew that the Nintendo Switch 2 was at least going to be $400 at minimum. So, excuse me there, I had a burp there. So, $450 is technically not really a whole lot more. You're basically just $50. But they also got $500 system that basically bundles the game Mario Kart World. But here's where things get a little bit interesting, okay? Certain games are going to be priced $80, some are going to be priced $60, some are going to be priced $70, and some are just going to be priced $40. So the pricing of the Switch 2's games is all over the place right now. It's just so freaking misconsumer, anti-consumer and whatnot. And the prices are just all over the place for when it comes to Switch 2 games. Now, Doug Bowser, the lead of Nintendo of America, basically came out and made a stupid statement as to why Switch 2 games cost more than honestly what they honestly should. He's basically saying, oh, well, that's because this is a Mario game. Of course, because it's going to hold its value. It's not about how much we spend in it. It's the value that it has. And that's just like saying, like, so a game like Call of Duty, okay? Because it's so popular and it's so, popular that it sells well, the game should be $100. Whereas a game like, let's say, Watch Dogs, for an example, that doesn't sell quite as well, that game should be $60. Whereas Call of Duty, that does sell well, should be $100. And that's exactly what Doug Bowser is trying to say, that like, oh, well, it's a game that's going to sell. We have to have it this price point. Or as if it ain't that price point, then we have to have it lower. And honestly, I think with Nintendo breaking the $70 price tag barrier, it's definitely going to create a lot of chaos in the gaming in the gaming industry, especially for like the next probably 2 to 3 years, and gaming's going to collapse. It is going to absolutely collapse if everything just goes up and the developers are just like, yeah, we could do whatever we want. We could charge $150. And that's just what's going to happen. Like, you can't deny that. It's just going to create a collapse, and all of these companies are going to be their own worst enemy and not actually realizing that they hurt themselves because they don't care. They'll take the risk of losing all those people's jobs because the higher up executives don't care. They worry about money, and they will try how hard they can, even though they know they're going to hurt themselves, but they will try because the money is what all they want. So, yeah. But here's another thing with Nintendo, okay? Switch 2 games, well, I should say current Switch 1 games that have graphical frame rate enhancements or graphical frame rate boost or whatever, guess what? You can't just simply pop in your cartridge or download that version of the game. You just can't simply plug it in there and get the upgrades. No, nope. You got to pay the upgrades. You got to pay to get those extra graphical enhancements. Whereas on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, you don't have to pay for that stuff. You can just literally pop in, like for an example, like a game I could think of, The Last of Us Part 2, okay? Even though that game has got a PlayStation 5 like remaster version, okay, guess what? You could still just pop in the PlayStation 4 version of The Last of Us Part 2 into your PlayStation 5, and guess what? You will still be granted with that 60 FPS patch that Sony has given that game a long time ago, early on into the PlayStation 5 generation. Now, you don't have to pay for it. You could just simply pop in the disc and install that version, or just download the PS4 version on your PS5, and you'll still get that FPS, 60 FPS upgrade for that game. And it's the same thing with other games on the Xbox Series X. And you know which one we're talking about? Forza Horizon 4. You can just download that game and you get the 60 4K 60 FPS upgrade for Forza Horizon 4. You don't have to pay for it. You just pop the disc in or download the game on your Series X and boom, you get the upgrade. This is where it's going to definitely create a lot of confusion, and Nintendo is already getting a lot of backlash. Like, they are absolutely getting all kinds of backlash right now for their, decisions, because they truthfully don't care. But you want to know what else? Honestly, guess what else? There is a game that basically that shows you what the system is capable of. Yeah, oh yeah. We're talking like Astrobot, that was like on the PlayStation 5. If you got a PS5, you would get Astrobot basically pre-installed on the PS5 console that you bought. Guess what? A game like this for the Nintendo Switch 2, you got to pay $10. You have got to pay $10 to get a game that should be pre-installed on the Switch 2 itself when you buy the console. It should not cost you any single freaking dime. So, yeah, get this. So, games. Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter. A game like Call of Duty can cost $100, whereas a game like Watch Dogs can cost $60, and then you have to repay a game that you currently own just to play it on a new system, and then you have to pay a game that basically is supposed to help you learn about the system. You have to pay for that game. Nintendo, don't know what in the world you're thinking, but this is definitely create a lot of chaos for you. And they have been getting a lot of backlash right now. Over the last few days, they have been getting lots of backlash. The only thing that I really like about the system is the fact that it is going to be a 1080p display on the handheld system, and then if you want to play in dock, you'll be granted with some sorts of 4K upscaling. And with 120 FPS and HDR support, that's honestly what I think is really impressive of the system. But when it comes to this greedy pricing and all that, with having to pay for a game that basically helps you learn its system, and then trying to sit there and say, oh, because this game is a popular game such as Mario Kart, that it does deserve to be cost $80, when in reality, you know that Nintendo games aren't that, costly like games like especially PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X games, because Nintendo doesn't have, the realistic of graphics, and they have learned to not care about that stuff, and it's what has helped them become successful, is what I'm trying to say. They just stick to a gorgeous, colorful looking game like Mario and Legend of Zelda, and just make sure that people can play with their friends. And Nintendo has been very successful doing that. So their games definitely don't cost that much in budgets like other developers that make games for the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, and even to an extent, even the last gen systems with the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Like, they're not, they don't have these high budgets like these other developers like Ubisoft and freaking Activision and whatnot. They don't have these huge profits, or these huge budgets, I mean. They don't. I mean, just look at it. Like, if you compare this game, for an example, which is Horizon Forbidden West on the PS5, if you compare this game to, like, let's say, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, you can clearly see that there is a lot more work that was put into this game in terms of the graphics, of the quality and the performance and all that stuff. You can tell that this game was on a tighter budget than freaking The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Not saying that Nintendo's games don't cost anything, because they do. It still costs a good decent bit, but you're probably talking like $100 to probably $150 million difference compared to this. This game cost around, from what I remember seeing a leaked of, was around $220 million. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, it probably only cost between 50 to maybe $75 million. I can already tell, because you could just tell from the graphics. So Nintendo is definitely being super greedy. And I think it's a same situation with basically Sony with the PlayStation 3. They were successful with the PlayStation 2. And so they decided, well, we got the market leader. We're the kings. We could definitely charge whatever we want. And I think that's what Nintendo is doing. Because you got to think, the Nintendo Switch is their most successful console, and it's almost about to surpass the PlayStation 2. So Nintendo's probably like, okay, well, we could do it too. Since Sony did it with the PlayStation 3 when they were successful, and you know what? We'll do it too. And then guess what? Just like Sony did, Sony got backlash with the PlayStation 3 because of its price point. And then guess what? Now that's happening with Nintendo with the Switch 2. Now, I'm not saying that the Switch 2 console itself price is bad, but when you factored like the Doug Bowser trying to sit there and say like games like Mario Kart World deserve to be more high price, and then having to pay for something that should be included in the game, like a game that helps you learn the basics of the system itself, and then freaking charging for basically games that you currently already own on the original Switch just to freaking be able to play them on the Switch too. I just don't get it. I personally don't get it. Honestly, this might actually be the freaking most worst, greediest console launch ever, even surpassing what Sony did with the PlayStation 3. At least you had free online with the PS3 and whatnot, and all you were basically buying was the console to be able to play PS1, 2, and PlayStation 3 basically games. Whereas Nintendo, it's just like, nope, some games can be $90 to $100, and then some games that have enhancements, nope, you got to pay for the enhancements because it was work done, even though they literally didn't do a whole lot of work for that. That's like basically saying like you got a new graphics card for your PC and you can basically change your graphical settings to look better because you got a nice graphical, and that's like saying if you got an NVIDIA graphics card, they could be like, oh, nope, you in this game, you have to pay for changing your graphics. That's just pretty much what it is. So, yeah, Nintendo is their own worst enemy, and they just absolutely do not care about the consumer because they think that because they were successful with the Switch 1, that they can do whatever they want with the Switch 2. This is a disaster. And I'm honestly glad that Nintendo is getting all the backlash that they honestly deserve, because they brought it to themselves. So this is Tech and Gaming Reviews. Hope you enjoy that video. If you could smack the like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and we'll keep you posted with more content like this going forward. And without further ado, let us know in the comment section down below of your thoughts of the Nintendo Switch 2 disaster that Nintendo has brought on themselves with pricing and all that stuff. So just let us know in the comment section down below of your thoughts. Hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and we will see you in the next video. Peace.